Music, warning, critical breach of galactic protocol detected. Code ultraviolet, humanity awakening in progress. The alarm rang out across every communication device in the galaxy, causing widespread panic. Crystalline beings shattered in fear. Energy entities vanished in terror. Multidimensional species disintegrated into individual forms in pure terror. Why? Because someone had just broken the one rule known to every spacefaring civilization: do not awaken humans. The Celians, with their glowing crystalline bodies, once boasted of being the most advanced civilization in the known universe. They mastered quantum mechanics when most species barely understood the basics of mathematics. Their technology was so advanced that faster-than-light travel seemed as ordinary to them as tying shoelaces. But despite all their superiority and achievements, there was one universal law that even the mighty Cyanos still didn't question: don't awaken humans. It wasn't that humans were particularly terrifying, at least not at first glance. They were perfectly ordinary biological creatures, barely able to travel between the stars before falling into a great hibernation. There were stories of them deciding to dive. I believe that during the Third World War, when their planet's resources were nearly exhausted, entire colonies of humans now drifted through space in enormous ships, sleeping for centuries while their automated systems kept them alive. No one really knew why this rule existed. It was passed down from generation to generation, translated into thousands of languages, and enforced by every spacefaring civilization. The galactic archives were filled with warnings, all saying the same thing: let them sleep. Chief Scientist Z ran his crystalline limbs across the panel of his research vessel, activating a holographic image of the last human ship they had discovered. Its crew kept a respectful distance, as protocol demanded. The ship was ancient, practically a relic. But there was something about it that made its crystals vibrate with unease. Amazing creatures, his voice murmured, resonating with its crystalline form. They look so peaceful when they sleep. It's hard to believe they are the reason for our most sacred rule. If only he knew how much reason he had to worry. Has anyone ever seen a human awake? Asked Zig, a young researcher, fresh out of the academy. Galactic, honored, and confident enough to fill an entire solar system. Of course not, Sid replied firmly. No one has broken that rule in over 10,000 years. But why are they so afraid of them? They look so soft. It's not what we know. Zig's crystalline form darkened ominously. It's what we don't know. It was supposed to be a routine scan. So he told the emergency council the next day, his crystalline form dulled with shame. Just a standard analysis of the human ship's outer shell. Nothing invasive, nothing dangerous. But Zig had other plans. His scans had revealed something unusual about the cryogenic systems, efficiencies that defied everything they knew about thermodynamics. Just a small probe, Zig insisted, his crystalline structure vibrating with excitement. We won't even touch the humans. Think of the scientific implications. Don't you want to know why that rule exists? A rule exists to be obeyed, Sid replied firmly, not to be questioned. But scientific curiosity can be dangerous. As Sid turned to check another console, he made a decision that changed everything. The galaxy forever, one swift touch of a crystalline appendage, an unauthorized probe launch, an irreversible error. As soon as the probe touched its target, something changed. The ancient human ship, dormant for centuries, began to hum with life. Alarms blared across the research vessel's monitors. What did you do? Zig's voice wavered with panic. His usually melodic intonations became chaotic and dissonant. Nothing. Maybe it was. Zig's body lost all its luster, becoming almost translucent with fear. The probe's quantum signature must have resonated with its cryogenic field. On the main display, the pods began to activate one by one, like stars appearing in the night sky, thousands of them. The ship's ancient systems, far from primitive, had executed a wake-up sequence so perfect that its sensors could barely keep up. Emergency transmission to High Command. Sid shouted, his crystals pulsing with alarm. Ultraviolet code. Repeat, ultraviolet code. Humanity is awakening in this sector. The answer was immediate. Within seconds, his small exploration ship was surrounded by the fleet. From the Celian warships, whose crystalline hulls formed a protective shell around the human vessel, the Supreme Commander appeared on the screen in her ancient form, glowing a deep violet with rage. "You have brains like neutron stars," she roared, using an insult so ancient it predates faster-than-light travel. "Do you have any idea what humans have done? You should have been asleep for at least another millennium," the Supreme Commander began. "Perhaps we could put you back to sleep." She was interrupted by an alarm. The human ship was starting its ancient engines. Systems that shouldn't have been operational activated with terrifying efficiency, and her scanners detected brainwave patterns indicating that the humans were not only awake but angry. Too late. The Supreme Commander's voice dropped to a whisper. "They're awake. May the First Light have mercy on us all." In the ensuing chaos, as emergency protocols were activated and evacuation orders were issued, Sieg turned to Zit with what would become the biggest understatement of the millennium. "I don't think this will reflect well on my performance review." Systems. The human ship's communication systems came to life, broadcasting signals across all frequencies in a language unheard of for centuries. The message was short, clear, and soon became famous across the galaxy: "Who dares disturb our slumber?" The Celian diplomatic corps prided itself on handling first-contact situations with impeccable restraint. They had prevented wars, genocides, and once convinced a hive mind not to turn an entire galaxy into paperclips. But nothing in their extensive training had prepared them for dealing with the irritable humans who had just been abruptly awakened from their cosmic slumber. The delegation was led by Ambassador Crystal, a name chosen specifically because humans were supposed to appreciate a literal translation. Her crystalline form was polished to perfection, refracting light into aesthetically pleasing patterns according to the beauty standards of 16 different species. "Remember," she instructed her crew, "we must be respectful diplomats and, above all, apologize. We interrupted your slumber." How serious could that response be? As it turned out, very serious. The human ship allowed them to dock, which the diplomatic crew took as a positive sign. They shouldn't have done that. As soon as they floated through the access channel, they were met by a group of people in pajama-like clothing, holding cups of something their sensors identified as coffee, a substance immediately classified as a possible chemical weapon. "So," said the leader of the people, with deep dark circles under his eyes and hair sticking out in all directions, defying several laws of physics, "did you decide it would be amusing to wake a few million people before their alarms went off?" "My dear people," the crystalline ambassador began with her carefully prepared speech, her figure shining with rehearsed sincerity, "on behalf of the Galactic Alliance, we offer you our deepest—" "Keep to yourself, Shimmer," the man interrupted, taking a long sip of coffee. "Do you have any idea how long it took to synchronize our sleep schedules? Do you know how difficult it is to get several million people to agree to take a nap?" The diplomatic team exchanged nervous glances, their crystalline bodies blinking uncertainly. "That wasn't in the instructions." "We've prepared extensive compensations," another diplomat interjected, "including the latest in comfort devices designed to enhance sleep," and the human leader literally snorted, causing the entire diplomatic corps to vibrate with alarm. "Oh, how ridiculous, do they really think we'll get back to sleep with some luxurious pillows? Have they ever tried to sleep after waking up? Impossible." And from there, things went downhill. The humans apparently had many opinions about waking up, and they wanted to share them all, preferably out loud. The situation reached a breaking point when one of the humans discovered that his favorite snack, something called pizza, had disappeared during his nap. The ensuing hysteria resulted in 3 diplomatic aides breaking down, and one temporarily losing his crystal. "This is unprecedented," Ambassador Crystal confided to the High Command. "They're not trying to destroy us, they're not even threatening war, they're just complaining non-stop about everything." People began organizing what they called neighborhood meetings to discuss their grievances. The very thought of it sent shivers through the diplomatic corps, millions of grumpy, newly awakened people gathering at once to complain. "We have to do something," Crystal pleaded with her superiors, but it was too late. People had discovered their favorite entertainment platforms were no longer working. The phrase, Netflix and chill, began to circulate with increasing hostility. Someone mentioned so-called social media withdrawal syndrome, and the diplomatic team's universal translators nearly overloaded trying to convey the full emotional weight of the concept. In a last-ditch effort to achieve peace, Ambassador Crystal offered the humans control of several tourist planets where they could rest until they felt ready to sleep again. The human leader's response will go down in diplomatic archives as the briefest and most horrifying refusal in history. "How impudent of you to assume we'll ever want to sleep again." Now, let's talk about those extinct pizza recipes. The Galactic Alliance soon discovered that a person awake with a grudge is bad enough, but a person awake with a grudge and without access to their favorite comfort food is a cosmic disaster. The real problems began when humans finally started checking their email, or rather, the quantum encrypted messages accumulated during their slumber. For centuries, the Celian High Council watched in horror as humanity's collective mood shifted from mild irrationality to something far more alarming. "Funny, let me clarify," the human leader said, already on his 15th cup of coffee, addressing an emergency meeting of the Galactic Alliance. "While we slept, you convinced yourselves that we entered cryosleep because we ran out of resources. According to our historical records, the Supreme Commander's crystalline form dimmed slightly." "Oh, what a treasure," another human interrupted, literally wiping away tears of laughter. "We must tell you the real reason, the truth no species in the galaxy has ever suspected." The assembled representatives leaned forward in collective anticipation. What was about to happen would change everything they thought they knew about. A brief pause in the transmission before we continue this galactic journey. If you enjoy this unique sci-fi experience, subscribe to the channel now and, most importantly, activate the bell to ensure YouTube's algorithm doesn't miss the next videos with the most gripping sci-fi stories. Amazing things you won't find anywhere else. Now, back to our story. The human leader's smile widened as he uttered a revelation that would shake the entire galaxy. "The truth is, we didn't go into cryosleep because we were running out of resources. We did it out of boredom. We solved practically every problem," the human leader explained, leafing through old mission logs with growing enthusiasm. "Clean energy, world peace, universal healthcare, faster-than-light travel, we even figured out why kids like cinnamon cereal. There was nothing else to do." The galactic archives quickly revealed their complete inaccuracy. Those primitive-looking ships were camouflage. Seemingly simple cryogenic capsules were actually quantum consciousness storage devices that made Celian technology look like two rocks colliding. The humans weren't sleeping, they were running universe-scale simulations, processing quantum calculations that would make a supercomputer cry, and apparently binge-watching every conceivable version of reality television. But, the warning was halting. "Ambassador Crystal, the rule is never to wake humans." So said the human scientist with an overly smug smile. "We wrote it, we spread it across the galaxy. The best joke of all time." The revelation hit the Galactic Alliance like a supernova. Humans weren't an endangered species in need of protection, they were, essentially, space teenagers who decided to take a nap and leave an elaborate out-of-office message. The true scope of human capabilities began to unfold while they slept. They mapped out every possible timeline in the universe. They solved the question of whether hot dogs are sandwiches, though they refused to share the answer, declaring that some things are best left a mystery. They developed a unified theory of everything, only to find it boring and create several more interesting ones. They created and abandoned 17 different types of social networks in their simulated environments, finding them too emotionally draining. They discovered why socks always disappear in the washing machine and whether they, too, hold that secret. Cyanoscopy scientists analyzing the primitive systems of a human ship had to recover from shock when they realized they were looking not at technology, but at art projects created by human children while their parents napped. "But why?" asked the Supreme Commander, her crystalline form literally vibrating with bewilderment. Why? Pretending to be a sleeping civilization. Have you ever tried to become the most advanced species in the galaxy? Replied the human leader. It's exhausting. Everyone comes to you with their problems. They're asking for technology. They want you to solve their existential crises. We just wanted a break. The final blow to the Galactic Alliance's collective pride came when they discovered that humans had reached this advanced stage of development before most other species had even invented the wheel. They merely observed the evolution of others, occasionally offering anonymous advice like, "Have you tried aiming the rocket the other way?" or "Maybe you shouldn't mix those chemicals." Think of it as a space gap year. A man told the increasingly concerned council, "Only instead of backpacking across Europe, we decided to take a few centuries off and let others handle everything for a while." The Supreme Commander's final report to the Galactic Alliance summed it up perfectly: we weren't protecting any species. We, primitive, sleeping beings, had unknowingly participated in the longest experiment in the universe, and now the experimenters were awake, caffeinated, and eager to learn about current events. May the gods they believe in have mercy on us all. In the archives of the Celian Academy of Sciences, the infamous SIG probe incident had been reclassified from the greatest scientific disaster to the most successful wake-up call in history. While no one was entirely sure whether this was truly for the better, the shift in the galaxy's power dynamics had occurred faster than a quantum hiccup. One moment, the Kelians were the undisputed masters of the known universe; the next, they watched as humans rebuilt entire star systems because feng shui was so flawed. "You can't just move a solar system," protested Supreme Commander Christos, his figure shimmering with pain. "While humans are calmly moving celestial bodies, look at us," replied the human leader, now wearing a robe and bunny slippers. "Since he controls the movements of entire star clusters, it obscures the view of this precious nebula, plus the travel time between planetary systems. God was ridiculous, who invented this airplane." The Galactic Alliance quickly discovered that trying to maintain order in the universe with fully awakened humans was like trying to herd quantum cats, theoretically possible, but practically useless. Humans began fixing things no one knew were broken. They introduced their concept of weekends for species that never stopped working. They created universal Wi-Fi that somehow worked across multiple dimensions. They launched a galactic food delivery service that could deliver food from any planet in under 30 minutes, or give you your money back. The Celian bureaucracy, once a model of efficiency, descended into chaos when humans introduced it to ideas like casual wear and office parties. The image of crystalline beings attempting to wear Hawaiian shirts would haunt the Supreme Commander's dreams for centuries. But after the initial shock wore off, a more disturbing picture emerged. The galaxy began to splinter into factions. Some species embraced human influence with alarming enthusiasm. Young cyanomorphs began forming hybrid social clubs, leading to the first interstellar meme war. A species that had existed for millennia and impressed everyone with its power began organizing meditation retreats after humans introduced them to hot chocolate and scented candles. Other civilizations, however, viewed humanity's awakening as an existential threat. The Quantum Collective, a group of beings composed of energy and considering themselves the intellectuals of the cyanomorphs, refused to acknowledge human authority and began fortifying their systems against what they called the threat of chaos. The smallpox crisis reached its peak during the First Galactic Reorganization Summit, where representatives from all major civilizations gathered to discuss sweeping changes. What was supposed to be a formal diplomatic conference quickly devolved into what humans called an informal party when they arrived with music, refreshments, and a mysterious punch that caused several delegates to temporarily shift into another dimension. Ambassador Crystal, now serving as the chief liaison with the humans, a position she never sought but somehow earned, watched in horror as centuries of carefully crafted diplomatic protocol crumbled before what humans called governance based on biblical principles. "This cannot continue," declared the collective representative. The energy signature of the quantum representative pulsed with indignation. "Humans are destroying the very foundation of our galactic society. Their chaos threatens to destroy millennia of progress and order. The human delegate, apparently dressed in cartoon pajamas, seemed genuinely surprised. "We're just trying to make things more calm. You've all been stressed. That's the problem." The quantum representative's energy surged dangerously. "The universe isn't designed for calm. It demands structure, hierarchy, and flexibility." The summit chamber physically divided, and species literally chose sides. On one side, those who embraced the human cosmic way of life, on the other, those who desperately cling to old ways. The crystalline ambassador found herself in the middle, her crystalline form refracting the tension emanating from both sides. Then, when the Void Harmonizers, formerly known as the dreaded Void Dragons, made a surprise announcement, their hive mind, speaking through a representative inexplicably dressed in a knitted sweater, addressed the divided room. "We support the humans," they declared. Their usually terrifying speech from the void now sounded strange. "Comforting for eons, while we consumed planets because we knew no other way to exist. Humans taught us meditation, introduced us to streaming services. We no longer want to consume worlds when we can simply watch Netflix and truly relax." The representative of the quantum collective vibrated with rage. "This is exactly what we feared. Humans tame potentially useful allies through entertainment and comfort. This is not progress, it is enslavement through relaxation." As accusations echoed through the room and energetic signatures clashed with crystalline resonances, the crystalline ambassador realized that the galaxy was on the brink of its first war in over 10,000 years, and it would be fought not over resources or territory, but over whether the universe should be governed by schedules or vibrations. Amid the growing chaos, Sith, now reluctantly appointed as the leader responsible for ensuring that the humans weren't too bored again, noticed something strange. The humans, who had been at the center of all galactic debate for weeks, suddenly fell silent. Their leading representatives quietly left the summit chamber, leaving only the junior delegates, who, following their scientific instincts, followed the unusual energy signatures into a restricted area of the station. There, to their surprise, they found the human leadership gathered around holographic screens, their expressions unusually serious. "What are you doing?" they asked, their crystalline forms dulled with worry. The human leader looked up, and his gaze no longer held mischief, but something Sith had never seen before, genuine concern. "Remember how we said we fixed everything before we went to bed?" He gestured to the screen, which displayed a giant anomaly forming at the edge of the galaxy. "Could we be missing something?" The holographic display showed what looked like a rift in the fabric of reality, a dark, swirling vortex slowly expanding at the edge of the galaxy. "What is it?" he asked, his crystalline structure vibrating with unease. "We call it cosmic unraveling," the human leader said, suddenly serious. "It's what happens when too many dimensions try to occupy the same space-time coordinates." Another man, dressed in a robe covered in mathematical equations, elaborated. "During our sleep, we experimented with interdimensional travel. We thought we had stabilized all the rifts, but apparently one of them eluded us. It had been growing for centuries, feeding on dark energy, and now Sith could barely comprehend what she saw. It's about to reach critical mass now," the human leader said gravely. "If it continues to expand, it will begin to consume entire star systems, and eventually the entire galaxy." Zit's crystalline form paled. "We must report this to the council immediately." The human leader grimaced. "We've run simulations." His typical bureaucratic response: committees, subcommittees, votes, more committees. "It will take too long. By the time you finish drafting the proposal for an emergency response team, half the galaxy will be gone." "But the protocols will kill everyone," the human interrupted. "Look, we created this problem. Before we fall asleep, we must fix it now," Zit demanded. Even with her advanced technology, the first hint of his usual mischief gleamed in the human leader's eyes. "We don't just need our technology, we need everyone's technology, including yours." And so, in the middle of a summit that was about to escalate into a war between galactic civilians, the humans burst into the room with what they called the bomb friends. "So stop the drama. The revelation of the cosmic exodus silenced all factional squabbles. Holographic images of entire star systems slowly being consumed by nothingness settled the dispute between vibrations and timelines. "This threat affects us all," the leader declared, standing in the middle of the room in his ridiculous bunny slippers, which, oddly enough, did not diminish his authority. "And we need this all fixed." "Why should we trust you with this crisis?" demanded the representative of the quantum collective. "Your species created this mess." "You're right," the human leader agreed. "We screwed up, but we're also experienced. We have experience in transdimensional physics." He added with a smile, "We're the only ones with nothing better to do. We've already watched everything on Netflix." Despite everything, his honesty cut through the tension. Even the most intransigent species couldn't argue with the numbers. The cosmic outcome was real. It was accelerating, and traditional approaches were too slow to stop it. "We need a task force," the man continued. "Not a committee, but a real team that will act immediately. We need the best minds from every civilization, working together without bureaucracy and protocol." The Tsillian Supreme Commander stepped forward, his crystalline form resonating with authority. "What you propose violates all established procedures of galactic governance." "Exactly," the man smiled. "So it might work." What followed was unprecedented in galactic history. The humans established what they called Apocalypse headquarters on a space station located a safe distance from the scene. Species that had never collaborated before, and even some that had actively avoided each other for millennia, found themselves working side by side. The Cyanos provided their crystalline computing networks, capable of processing information at quantum speeds. The ancient Arad bases offered their unique ability to perceive and transcend spatial barriers. The quantum collective, despite initial resistance, provided key insights into energy manipulation. And at the center of it all were humans, coordinating these diverse efforts with a chaotic efficiency that simultaneously perplexed and impressed their alien counterparts. "How do you manage it?" he asked. Ambassador Cal Acid watched as humans conducted complex operations, argued over pizza ingredients, and competed in so-called office chair races down the hallways. "I study them," Sith replied, completely absorbed in his scientific curiosity. "They seem to function best in controlled chaos. The less formal the setting, the more creative their solutions become." Indeed, the humans transformed the space station into what they called a Hakata environment. Formal meeting rooms were converted into cozy lounges with beanbags. The command center featured cutting-edge holographic displays and a coffee bar. Teams worked non-stop, taking breaks only to participate in impromptu dance parties or video game tournaments, which the humans considered necessary for mental work. The Cyanos, accustomed to rigid hierarchies and formal protocols, were initially horrified. But as the days passed, and they saw real progress achieved through this chaotic approach, even they were forced to admit that something extraordinary was happening. The plan that was eventually devised was as daring as it was unprecedented. The cosmic exodus. There is no foothold from our new universe, when the rupture of the era of great energies that reached the extreme limits occurred, and in their eyes human beings are advancing along what speaks of the redirection of dimensions as the glory of the cosmos, explained by the scientific man used in the cafeteria. To create an improvised model without the ability to hold an energy flow that can be redirected into a continuous cycle that is retroelement, and it is impossible to confirm that a representative of the collective who uses energy resources solo is impossible for a single special person is not part of all work activities that require perfect coordination between technologies and special radical differences in crystalline crystals, calculations and maintaining precise frequencies that result from. The most precise measurements find the limits of dimensions to accommodate the redirection of collective actions related to energy flows and docents of other species who perform special roles in this symphony of the galaxy, but he was not allowed to. The leader of humanity presents the final plan for the reunification of representatives, but it is good that he saved the galaxy earlier, since all this was first and did not contradict all protocols, traditions and probabilities of the galactic Alliance, which unanimously gave preference to the human plan, like the good old front sea destruction is preferable to an order for extinction on the day of implementation, but with a palpable tension in various points that are located in the large galaxy, where one component is crucial for spatial redirection in the center of the coordination of people at the end of the extra-medium intense concentration and humor, when the red color of Lugar in Celian is in a state of standby, when the command